Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this talk from Royal Holloway, University of London. Today's webinar is all about Discover and its psychology with Rachael. Rachael's going to be spending her time talking to us about neuropsychology today, which is a really interesting and compelling topic. Just to introduce myself, my name is Alice. I am a Widening Access Officer at Royal Holloway, so I work with schools and colleges in the local area to provide you guys with education about colleges, universities, and all of the different choices that are available to you. So just before we start today, would you mind just using the chat feature on the right-hand side and just typing in a yes or something like that to make sure you can hear me okay, please? It's good, seeing lots of yeses coming through. Fantastic, brilliant. Okay, so just to let you know that this session is being recorded, so you don't have to make any notes if you don't want to. You can always email us at the end for a copy of the recording or the slides. If you've got any questions, I would ask if you could just save them until the end when there will be some time for Q&A. But if you would like to ask any questions that are absolutely burning, you have to ask them right there and then, feel free to. And you can select if that goes to all of the audience or just to me, and I can pass that on to Rachael. Okay, so we're just going to check that Rachael microphone is working. I'm just going to unmute you. Rachael, could you unmute and just check that your microphone's working, please?
Yes. Is it working?
That's brilliant. Fantastic. Okay, I'm now going to mute myself, so take it away.
Okay. So I'm just going to talk to you a bit about myself briefly and then tell you a little bit about what I'm going to be talking about later on. So my name is Rachael. I'm a second-year psychology student, and I'm going to give you a little taste of what a psychology lecture is like. So a lecture, if you don't know, at university, it normally involves being in a lecture theatre. Obviously now we're having it online, so it's kind of very much like this. And your lecture will pretty much talk at you the majority of the time, but there'll be opportunities to ask questions either at the break, if it's a really long lecture. So a lot of my lectures are 2 hours and we'll have a little break after an hour where we can ask some questions. Or normally it's at the end where you ask questions. So in this talk, I'll be talking a bit about general university life, but also a lot about Royal Holloway specifically, just because that's my experience. And like a lecture, you'll receive opportunity at the end to ask me any questions, like Alice has said, and this could be anything regarding what I've covered or not covered, any questions at all. So now I'm just going to tell you a bit more about Royal Holloway. So we're based in Egham, and this is, if you haven't heard of Egham, that's fine. It's just outside of London, which is like a 14 minutes to London by train, so really not too far, quite commutable. So on the left here is a picture of our campus. You can see all the little buildings and stuff. The purple bit, the big one, is the Founders Building, and there's like accommodation in there and a lecture theatre and a cafeteria and all other stuff. I actually lived there first year and I really loved it. You'll see more pictures later. So a campus, this is a campus university, and what that essentially means is it's a lot like a mini village. So where you live, meet your friends, do sports, go to a shop, and obviously attend lectures is all in this like area. And that's where instead a city university is where buildings are spread across the city. So you have to commute a bit more between lectures, maybe even have to take a bus. So that's the difference. And as you can see, it's quite lovely. Our campus got lots of green areas. Yeah. So this is just a little bit about Royal Holloway. We're the top 22nd university in the UK. We have 11,000 students, which like it might sound like a lot if you come from like a smaller school, but it's quite, you know, like a smaller university, quite a nice community feel. We have over 250 degree courses available, lots of clubs and societies. I think that's a picture of cheerleading club society. And we have a mix of traditional and modern aspects to our campus. So the top left picture is Founders Building. As you can see, it's quite like an older building. And then opposite it, you have the library there. You can kind of see it's a more of a modern building from the bottom left picture. Yeah, and so it's quite beautiful. I was awarded most beautiful UK university, so it's quite a nice place to be. Very Instagrammable, so nice. Okay, so this is just some pictures of me and my friends at university. So this is my Royal Holloway journey. When looking at universities, my preferences were for a campus university close to home. When I was looking, like, when do you look, like year 12, year 13? I was looking for universities within a 2-hour radius of my house. So like, didn't want to branch out too far. But luckily, Royal Holloway was only a 30-minute or so drive from my house, which I love. It's a campus university. I really loved the buildings and the fact that there was loads of places surrounding university that I could visit that was easily accessible. You can see that in the pictures. So the top left is me and my friends were roller skating at Virginia Water. That's like a 15-minute, if that, walk from campus, and it's lovely area, Virginia Water Park, and it's beautiful. The next picture, we're at Windsor. You can walk there, but if you're not much of a walker, you can take the bus. My friend actually drove us there, so that was nice. And then the next picture is at Thorpe Park, which was amazing. We went, and it because we had Tuesdays off, so we went on a Tuesday. There was really no one there. It was amazing. And then the next picture, you can see me in my first year dorm, and that was in Founders Building. So it was pretty much your standard accommodation, but it was really nice. Back to the bottom left, you can see me and my friend at a workshop. This is this year, so this is how, just to give you an idea of how it looks now, there's like cardboard separating us and like wearing our masks. And then this is again outside Founders, and then we're actually inside Founders Chapel in the next picture. It's very, very beautiful. Yeah, so just that's what it is. So as you can see, it's a lovely, beautiful campus, or at least I think that. Yeah, and there's loads of places to visit. And reason why I specifically chose Royal Holloway to study is because with psychology, there are so many different topics that are covered. Different universities offer lots of different modules and courses. It varies so much. So I went to a few different universities' applicant days, and this is where you narrow down your university options, and you get a couple of example lectures and hear from current students. And personally, I really loved Royal Holloway psychology course, and that was my final deciding factor. So I'd suggest, instead of like when you're looking at universities and trying to get your idea, think about like the campus and think about the places and the area, but also think about specifically the course. Especially with psychology, they're going to offer you such a wide variety of options. I have friends who do psychology at other universities, and they do such different things to me. So I'd keep that in mind. Yeah. Okay, and now we're going to talk a bit about neuropsychology. So I picked neuropsychology to talk about today. I'm not an expert in this at all, but I had a lecture on it last term, and I was surprised with how much I enjoyed it. This is not a topic that comes naturally to me, and I wasn't too sure how I'd feel about this module before I took it, but it was actually really fascinating. And after the lectures finished, I immediately researched them, and I hope you guys enjoy it too. So we're going to talk a bit about the history of neuropsychology. So clinical neuropsychology, like many aspects of psychology, this field has a lot and lots of developments in order for it to together what we know today. And as with most things, there's still so much to learn. There is still lots of research going on in this area. It started with neurologists trying to localize where in the brain different functions arose. So this is referring to localization of function, which is the idea that different areas of the brain are responsible for different behaviors, processes, or activities. Therefore, if damage occurs in one area, it will affect a certain physical or psychological function being damaged. For example, as you can see in the picture, it's highlighted in the red area, the Broca and Wernicke's area. And Broca's area is about speech, and Wernicke's area is about comprehension. And Broca and Wernicke, they discovered that they had patients with language deficits who had discrete areas of brain damage, these red areas, that's the damaged areas. And this led to the view that we can localize brain function because, for example, Broca, he identified an area linked to speech production and damage in this area. He coined it Broca's aphasia, which is basically speech that is slow, laborious, and lacking fluency. So that's speech where they, you know, when you're thinking like 20 miles a minute, but it's just coming out really, really slow. So you're still making sense, but it's taking you a while to voice what you're thinking. And then so cognitive neuropsychologists like them use single case studies as their focus. So looking at specific people who came to them with certain deficits and trying to work out where in the brain was affected. Their aim was to link where brain damage is to their behavioural problems. And previously, they often relied on autopsies to analyse people's brains once they have died, to study any damage or anomalies that they caused this, to establish their afflictions and compare it to control brains. This has its issues though, as the issues with post-mortem research is causality. As you can imagine, when someone's died, you can't necessarily say that the damage you're observing to the brain is linked to the deficits that you want to find, but it instead could be caused by other trauma when they died or due to decay after death. So there's loads of reasons. It was very correlational and not necessarily causational. So that's what you have to keep in mind. So a secondary result of clinical neuropsychology is rehabilitation, strategies and assessments of those with brain impairments. However, it's important to note that historically, when neuropsychology was being developed, their main aim was not concerning how their research could be applied to help these people, but it was just rather they wanted to learn about the cognitive systems and the brain by studying people with specific deficits. So it kind of sounds a bit mean. They weren't too interested in helping people, just they wanted more knowledge, basically. So we're going to be talking a bit about unilateral neglect. This is specifically the area of neuropsychology I'm going to be talking about. So unilateral neglect, as you see from this quote, is following right hemisphere brain damage. A patient without impairment of intellectual functioning appears to forget, ignore, or turn away from the left side of space, as if half of that world no longer exists. And this kind of brain damage is often a result of a stroke. And it's also referred to as left neglect because they're ignoring the left side of their world, if that makes sense. This is just an image of the brain. So as you can see, this darker area is where the damage is. So left parietal damage rarely produces right-sided neglect. So rarely you'll have it, you know, ignoring the right side of space. There's probably cases where it has happened, but it's very, very rare. And this is because the right hemisphere is dominant in orientating attention and general level of awareness. So this right side, if you have damage here, it's the cause of your attention, basically. So that's why that damage leads to that behavior or deficit. Okay. So I'm just going to give you 30 seconds. Maybe you can put it in the chat if you want to, but I'm just going to leave you with this question for a little bit. So if you are unable to be aware of objects to your left, what everyday tasks might you struggle with? So if you had this neglect, if you had this deficit, what would you struggle with every day in your everyday life? Like what tasks would be harder for you to do? I see driving, that's a good one. I was actually talking to someone the other day and they said a similar thing. Putting on makeup, yeah, could you imagine having like half your makeup done perfectly and just ignore the other side of your face? Yeah, yeah, wrist definitely. There's probably, you need to be, one of the main reasons we've evolved and stuff is we need to be aware of what's going on in our world. There's so many dangers around and that's why it's so important. Crossing roads, yes. Okay, so these are just a couple of examples that I came up with. Yours was amazing, all your examples. So everyday example is you only shaving the right side of your own face, just shaving that right side, completely ignoring the other, or eating food on the right-hand side of the plate only. People might think, oh, great dieting choice, whatever, but it'd be so sad, you're wasting half a plate of food. Also, a non-spatial component of neglect is lacking arousal, being sleepy. So that's again about, it's like an attention thing. Yeah. So it's just something that could, just little things that could affect you. Obviously, there's big things, but these are just some everyday struggles, I guess, unilateral neglect. And now we're going to look at like diagnosing. So these are how you have the clinical tests of neglect. So as you can see from these pictures, they're only drawing one half of the scene, as you can see. So what you do is your common way of seeing if patients are struggling for unilateral neglect involves drawing. So you would ask them to copy a scene or draw a flower from memory. And as you can see in all the pictures, they're only drawing half the picture. But they think they've drawn the whole thing. They've drawn what you've asked them to draw. They've only drawn half. You see, they've drawn half a clock, half a house, half a cat, half a flower. They're not drawing it all. They're ignoring the side to their left. And this is a case study. I found this case study really, really interesting. It's by Marshall and Halligan. It was a single case study of patient PS. So this patient was shown pictures of 2 houses, and they were asked, are these houses the same? And they said yes. So this is the 2 houses that they were shown. This is the first one. And then this is the second one. And straight away, hopefully all of you can see that these houses are different, but this patient PS is seeing them as the same house. He thought that they were both identical houses, when really, as you see from the one on the bottom, one of them is on fire, you know, not an ideal place to live in a burning house. But when they were asked which house they preferred to live in, they consistently chose the house that was not burning, so the one on top. They consistently said, oh, I don't know why, but I'm going to choose to live in this house. And they, you know, switched the positions, whatever, showed them in different orders. They kept saying, oh yeah, same house, but they consistently chose the non-burning house to live in. And this shows that there is still some influence on the cognitive processes at pre-conscious level. They don't know why they're picking this non-burning house. They don't even know that it's non-burning, but for some reason they're picking it. So there's some pre-conscious level, they're processing some residual processing left. There is some information being processed outside of their awareness. They don't know this information, but they've processed it. Therefore, left-sided neglect information seems to be processed at quite a high level of the cognitive system. It's getting processed quite high up. Information is coming in, one house is burning, one house is burning, one house is burning, but it's not getting to that final step where they know that one house is burning. That makes sense. And then, so this is just some interesting cases. So in Oliver Sacks' book here, it's the case study of a man with visual agnosia who confused his wife's head as a hat. So he thought his wife's head was a hat. You know, obviously if you went to go pick up your wife's head to put it on your head, it'd be a bit of a weird behavior, to say the least. So this is an interesting case. He is obviously has some faulty processing of visual information. And in cases like these, you often use CT scans and MRIs to make a diagnosis. You're not doing the drawing diagnosis task. So I actually haven't read this book, just to tell you, so but it's quite popular and everyone recommends this book. So maybe that's why I haven't read it. I kind of already know what it's about, but if you wanted some further reading, maybe check this one out. I think it's quite interesting. I think it has other clinical tales and stuff. It's not just about the man, it's just, I think that's quite a famous case study. But I've actually read this book. It's called Phantoms in the Brain. I read it a few years ago and absolutely loved it. It's very accessible to read. You don't need a psychology dictionary to understand it. By this, I mean when I was first looking into psychology and realized I really loved it, There was lots of articles and stuff that I was reading that was really complex. Just saying a bunch of new words that I hadn't heard of. They probably could have said it in an easier way. It wasn't very accessible. But this book was so easy to read. You don't need, a degree in psychology to understand it. And there were many interesting cases discussed in that book and experiments that you might even try yourself. So if you're interested, I'd recommend reading that book, yeah. We're going to talk about consciousness. And when discussing things like unilateral neglect, consciousness is a topic that always comes up. This is because there's always the question regarding how much participants or patients are consciously aware of. And this may be an important finding, which is why it can be a big issue in psychology, especially as there is no one idea of consciousness. Consciousness was also previously the work of philosophers such as René Descartes. You might know his very famous quote, "I think, therefore I am." But as we've already looked at previously, we can already be deceived by our own mental states. We can't trust that just because we think we are, we can't trust what we're seeing. Like, we're being deceived. We might think we're drawing a whole picture, but we're not, So we're going to talk a bit more about the brain. So this is just to give you an idea of the biological mechanisms that we're talking about. So the brain consists of about 100 billion neurons. So that's, that's a lot of neurons. And each of this 100 billion neurons can form between 5,000 and 200,000 connections with other neurons. So it's this internet connected system that is organized into very complex and powerful information processing networks. This is how information is spread across the brain. It's quite amazing, really. And so it's all about action potentials, which is like a burst of activity containing each information. Each neuron firing transmits a message, and this is what we make up as consciousness. In the brain, you have a set of systems and circuits made from neurons. And by themselves, these individual neurons, they can't do anything. They're not doing anything. They have to communicate with all the other neurons. So all they can do is fire action potentials, and these action potentials links to another neuron, they fire again, and so on. So on their own, they're not very capable, as they contain very little information. But combining them and allowing them to flow together creates this illusion of the self, the sense of identity and consciousness. And this is what we make out as our personality, our thoughts, all our memories. They're all just these little neurons firing and communicating with each other. And if you find any of this interesting, you want to learn more about consciousness, the book Consciousness Explained by Dennett has been recommended to me. Honestly, my lecturer that term on this module kept bringing this book up. He completely fanboyed over this book, so I might have to read it. If you want to read it, I'd recommend it. He really seems to love this book, so I'm going to take his word for it and say it's a good one. So the reason consciousness is such a big issue is that there are so many definitions of consciousness. So biomedical science defines consciousness as the state of conscious state of a waking state. So just like being awake and knowing your surroundings and stuff. And this may involve someone's responsiveness to questions, commands, the ability to describe oneself in current events. That's what biomedical science is calling consciousness. But this is only one definition. There are loads and loads of definitions of consciousness, which makes it a very challenging phenomenon. As you see, this is the reason it's a big issue, because if there's no agreed idea of consciousness, there is no agreed way of studying it. If you have completely different ideas and definitions, it's going to be confusing. If you're reading an article about consciousness, you're thinking, well, which definition are they looking at? And so this has been a big issue from the conception of psychology, basically. It's one of the first methods of study was done by Wundt, who created introspection. If you've done psychology A-level, you're doing psychology A-level, maybe you've heard of Wundt. He's like the father of psychology. And introspection was just a controlled method of collecting thoughts and feelings. And it involves breaking up conscious awareness into basic structures of thoughts, images, and sensations. So very early on, they would just, stop the clock and be like, oh, what will you think about right now? And before you have a chance to think, you just had to write it down. Also Freud, another person that people dub the father of psychology, he emphasized the importance of understanding the unconscious and conscious mind. Have you heard of like Freudian slips, where like, say maybe you're talking to someone really short and you're very conscious of the fact that they're short and you're asking, oh, you're going to say like see you later, and use accent and say short you later or something. That's like a Freudian slip. You didn't mean to say it, but you said it because it was like in your unconscious. But obviously Freud's theory of the consciousness has its problems, because in order for a concept to have scientific credibility, it must be tested and checked to make sure it isn't false. So Freud's understanding of consciousness has its issues, as it cannot be proven or disproven. But nowadays in modern research, we utilize brain imaging studies, which is a bit more scientific. So you have fMRI, MEG, PT, etc., looking at the cortex to understand conscious experience. You know, for example, seeing which parts of the brain lights up when you're presented with certain stimuli. We're going to just talk briefly about SPERRY and the divided self. So SPERRY's research provides further examples of how, you know, we can be wrong, essentially, how our consciousness can deceive us. His experiments completely changed our understanding of consciousness and the brain. He looked at patients with epilepsy, and they had very severe epilepsy because they couldn't live like, you know, everyday lives very well. So they had to undergo surgery to prevent their epileptic seizures from spreading from one hemisphere to the other by the corpus callosum. So if you don't know what the corpus callosum is, I can have a picture here. It's just what connects the two hemispheres, what keeps them in communication, essentially. He cut it, because if they're not communicating with each other, it means that things that are causing the epilepsy is not spreading to the other side of the brain and making it worse, making the seizures worse. So he cut that. So it's quite a big surgery. And you might expect after having this brain surgery, where the two hemispheres can no longer talk to each other, that would have serious consequences. But patients actually remarkably seem normal after recovery from surgery. So that's quite good. They were able to do a lot of their everyday, pretty much all their everyday tasks again. And then after they went on surgery, he gave them controlled psychological testing. So these are just behavioral experiments, like asking them, oh, draw this, or tell me what you're seeing here, and presenting them both visual fields. And this revealed that the two hemispheres had their own independent streams of consciousness, one based in each hemisphere. So this discovered some very interesting problems. For example, a patient would choose to pick up some clothing with their right hand, and they'll be thinking about this because it's their left hemisphere, which verbalizing it, because the left hemisphere is language related. So they'll be thinking about this in the left hemisphere, going to pick up with their right hand this piece of clothing, and then the left hand would like aggressively grab the clothing, put it back, and pick up something else that the left hand wanted. And obviously the patient would be quite shocked because they made the conscious choice, they made the decision, but they're confused as why their left hand seemingly has a mind of its own and is doing something that they didn't want it to do. And this led to SPERRY's conclusion that each hemisphere has its own perceptions, memories, and experiences, its own consciousness, if you will. So each hemisphere is essentially its own person, kind of, and it'd be quite annoying if you want to do something. This video we're not able to show you, but I just wanted to let you know that there's loads of videos on YouTube that you can watch. So this one would have shown you about a split brain patient called Joe being tested with stimuli presented in each different field. So if you were a bit confused about my last slide, or you needed to see like a real world example, it just shows him being presented with stimuli to each visual field. It's presented really quickly, so he doesn't really have time to like move his head to make it to the next visual field, and he'll ask me draw it or say it, and he's saying and drawing, he's confused. He's like, why did I draw that? I didn't see that, I didn't say that. But yeah, if you're interested in that, give that a check out. Probably also go on like a YouTube like rabbit hole where you just like keep clicking next and finding new interesting research and clips. So yeah, look at YouTube if you want to get more of an idea. So as I said previously, psychology is a topic that's constantly developing with new ideas, theories, experiments, and findings. And so here is just a few examples of research that our researchers and lecturers at Royal Holloway have carried out. So this is our university's like research for like whatever I could find some screenshots of. So there's so much research going on. And when you're looking for research, if you're looking for articles on specific topics you find interesting, I would recommend using Google Scholar. So just type in Google Scholar in Google and type in whatever you're interested in researching. It's very good. It's where I get most of my sources when looking up for my research, my essays. Also, I'd say never pay for an article. Most of the time you don't have to. There's so many places you can find that have it free. So if you find an article on Google Scholar and I want you to pay for it, just Google the actual article and have a look. If not, there's probably a lot of articles that have cited it that you could read. So yeah. This is just like a little summary of what we've talked about. So if you're just to have a little think, we were talking about a bit about the history of neuropsychology, unilateral neglect, awareness. So that was the Burning House study where they weren't aware really that one of them was burning, but they were still clicking it. So there's something was happening with their awareness. And we briefly discussed consciousness and why it's a bit of an issue in psychology. This is just a quick summary so you can make note of some of the readings and books I've mentioned previously. Also, I'm just going to suggest if you're like me and you like watching movies, these are a couple of movies that show two very famous experiments. You might have heard of them. It's Zimbardo's Stanford Prison Experiment, that's the very famous one, and also Milgram's Obedience to Authority Experiment. They're talked about a lot. If you have any questions about that in a minute, that'd be fine. But yeah, just make a note if you need to of them. So degrees and jobs with a psychology degree. So this is like further study after the psychology degree and what possible jobs you could do with a psychology degree. Have a quick look at that now. There are so many more. So this is just a few examples. Yes, so many more that you can do. This is just all that would fit on the slide. And so as you see, there's so many options. I actually kind of wish there wasn't so many options, as that would make my decision a little easier for what I want to do after graduation. I'm still very unsure what I want to do. I used to want to go into child or educational psychology. So that's what I was thinking when applying for my psychology degree at Royal Holloway. I was thinking that was the career I was going to go into. But since coming to university and discovering topics like neuropsychology that I didn't actually know I was going to really like, this has made me a bit unsure of which branch of psychology I will study after university. And of course, I don't even have to stay in a psychology specific field, as you can see from the list. So, I see events manager, teaching assistant, other stuff that's not psychology related that I could go into. So loads of options. I'd actually love to hear what you guys are thinking of. Maybe you want to do as a job. Maybe you'll give me some new ideas and help me decide what I want to do. So that'll be good. If you guys have any idea of what you want to do with a psychology degree, or if nothing psychology related, that'd be interesting. And then now we have time for like a quick Q&A session if you want. So if you guys have any questions or have anything you'd like to say or contribute, please put in the chat. Again, this can be about anything that I've talked about, anything I've not spoken about, be about Royal Holloway, general university life, be about psychology, anything. I'll do my best to answer them.
I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second here whilst we give people a minute to type, and I can see loads of questions are already coming through. I'm very, very quickly going to show you this just so that people have got a minute. If you are in year 10, year 11 or year 12 and you're interested in coming for a spring or summer university residential, do have a little look online. Year 10 and 11 is in April and that's going to be online. Year 12 is in June and July, and we're not sure if it's going to be face-to-face or online just yet. It's completely free. It's going to be for 3 days and hopefully 2 nights staying over, and you stay on the beautiful Royal Holloway campus, as you can see there. and you're going to meet current university students just like Rachel, take part in subject tasters that are relevant to what you want to study, or similar kind of subjects, and having a look at the range of other options that are available to you as well. It's really, really good fun, especially, if it is online, it's obviously going to be a little bit different, but there's loads of social activities, face-to-face and online as well. So do have a look. If you want more information, just go onto Google and type in Royal Holloway Spring or Summer University or Residentials, and do have a check of the criteria before applying. Applications are open. The Year 10 and 11 one shuts on Friday, so you need to get a move on if you're in Year 10 or 11, and Year 12 you've got until the end of March. Sorry for interrupting you, Rachel, but just have to do a little bit of a sell for that. Right.
No, that sounds really interesting.
We've got loads of questions coming through, so I'm going to mute myself, and then I'm going to copy and paste them onto Rachel because I think they've all come through to me. Yeah, so just bear with me. If you don't want to hang around for questions, you're more than welcome to leave and have a lovely evening. I would just ask you to fill out the questionnaire when you leave this webinar. Just take 30 seconds of your time to give us some feedback. That would be great. But if you do want to hang around for some of the questions from Rachel or from myself, that would be amazing, and we would love to have you. Right, Rachel, just give me a second. I'm going to copy and paste.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I see one question. Did anyone inspire you in psychology? Does that mean did anyone inspire me to do psychology, or anyone in a psychology field that inspires me? I'll try and answer both questions just in case. So I did psychology A-level. I already knew before, starting A-level, that psychology was something I was interested in, but my psychology A-level teacher really gave us lots of research and lots of sources to look at in our own time as well. And I just found it very, very fascinating. Every aspect of our life, psychology is relevant to. There's not going to be anything that you come across that you can't link psychology to. We're social creatures. Every time we talk to other people or any jobs that we do is going to have important for psychology. And then psychology, did anyone in the field, I guess? Well, lots of our lecturers do their own research as well, and during first year I signed up to be like a participant in loads of studies, and that was really cool. It was a way to just get you to know the research a bit better, so that was kind of inspiring as well. What A-levels / extracurricular did you do? Okay, so I did psychology A-level, I did philosophy and ethics A-level, and then I did BTEC level 3 health and social care. Loved them all. They were all very relevant to my degree, and I spoke about them all in my personal statement as well. And extracurricular. So before I did like clubs, like football and stuff, but I also did I had some jobs. So I did some volunteering at White Lodge Centre as like a play assistant. That was so fun. I was just spent the day hanging around with kids and playing with them, and it was just really great. Yeah, I also had a job as a shop assistant and stuff like that, so that's what I was doing year 12 and year 13. How did you decide you definitely wanted to do psychology? Oh, that's a good question. So before, even during GCSEs, I was oh, psychology is something I was really interested in. And then I found out my school was offering that for A-level. So I thought, yes, definitely give that a go, see if I like it. I loved A-level psychology. And then I thought, oh, yeah, so that's what I want to look at. So I want to look at university. So I went to universities to look at. They give normally a lecturer will come in and give a little talk during open days and stuff. I still loved it, did further research in it, watched movies, read articles, and loved it all. So yeah, that's how what I did to find out I definitely wanted to do psychology at uni.
Okay, there's some amazing questions coming in there. I've just had a few other questions about residentials and things. If you do want any more information and you want to ask me, by yourself, so you're not having to ask in front of lots of people, you're more than welcome to email me. If you just email schools, so school with an S on the end, at rhul.ac.uk. I'll just put that in the chat now for everybody actually. So schools at rhul.ac.uk. That's our email address, and if you've got any questions or you want a copy of the recording, that's what you should do, and we'll get that sent out to you later in the week. I think that's all the questions coming through. I've been flicking through and I can't see any more that are kind of for everybody, so I think we will leave it there. As I said, just let me know if you've got any other questions on email, but thank you so much for coming along and spending your afternoon with us. I hope it's been really, really useful. I've certainly learned a lot, and thank you so much for Rachel for giving up your time as well.
Oh no, it's awesome, thank you.
Fab. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a lovely evening.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.